Good evening. This is a call to order for the March 10th, 2025 City of Canal, Winchester Planning and Zoning meeting. Mr. Deeds, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue.
Present.
Ms. Gooden.
Present.
Ms. McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Paulsgrove.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Mr. Wildenthaler.
Here.
And myself here.
All right, time in is 7 o'clock p.m. I'll now need approval of our February 10th minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of the February meeting as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Wildenthaler, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Ms. Gooden.
Yes.
Ms. McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie.
Abstain.
Mr. Wildenthaler.
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
Now is time for public comment for items that are not on our agenda this evening. So if there's anybody that's here that wishes to speak regarding an item that's not on the agenda, now would be the time. All right, if you'll be speaking with us this evening, if there's any chance you'll speak to the commission, whether you're a member of the public or an applicant, if you're able, would you please stand and take an oath? Do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give, tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And I will turn it over to Mr. Moore for our first application this evening.
So the first application on tonight's agenda, variance 25001 for 5800 Gender Road, has been requested to be tabled by the applicants. Their project superintendent was unable to make it here this evening, so they've requested that to be moved to the April agenda.
All right.
So moving on, the first application for discussion tonight is both zoning map amendment 25001 and preliminary development plan 25001. Both of these applications were tabled during the February meeting based off of recommendation from staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission for the applicant to address the deficiencies in the staff report and to come back with those amendments for further review. The applicant has made some adjustments to their plans, is back this evening. So I'll go over those with the commission. As a kind of brief reminder, this property is currently zoned PRD. It is part of an active development that was approved in 2001 for the Greengate Piper development tract. This acreage up on the right-hand side of the screen approved approximately 300 acres in a mix of uses from planned residential, planned commercial, and planned industrial districts. The subject property that's being discussed this evening is outlined in red. This tract was originally approved for an assisted living facility and 44 independent detached condos. The applicant is requesting to rezone this property to allow 122 apartment dwelling units. This parcel is approximately 25 acres plus some of the right-of-way along Hill Road to approximately 26.7 acres. Again, the applicant's requesting to rezone the site to a new PRD that allows for 122 apartment dwelling units. When looking at the updated site plan, the applicant has not changed any of the conditions on the left-hand side for the breakdown of units. The number of units still is proposing the same 6.03 units per acre density, is providing approximately 8.5 acres of open space, which nets to 34% of the overall development of the parcel. When looking at the site plan, there are some components the applicant has noted for permitted uses, which would include a clubhouse, accessory components such as a pool, recreational amenities. There will be a freestanding maintenance building and a freestanding mail kiosk facility. At the front of the complex has this component to the development, along with some off-street parking stalls to handle the demand for that corner of the space. The applicant has provided a rendering of what that building would look like for the clubhouse elevation. Elevations have been provided for all four sides in the packet for your review. The floor plan is in the previous packet, if you guys wanted to reference anything with that. When looking at the connectivity to the site, the applicant is proposing 2 full access drives to Hill Road. The southernmost access drive lines up with the Greengate Boulevard on the opposite side of Hill Road. This access drive is the main entry in and out of the facility. To the north, a little more than 500 feet away, is a second full access drive that will primarily serve as a secondary access into the development. The applicant has updated their plans based off of feedback from our staff and the P&Z Commission. They are showing 5 sidewalk connections that lead to the Hill Road sidewalk path that they'll be constructing with this development. And their development text does reflect all 5 connection points that will be made as part of this project. Additionally, some of the other comments from the commission was interconnectivity throughout the development. The applicant has added some more connectivity in the large central green to the site, helping the residents in that area network and move around internally as well. When looking at the development text, the applicant has committed to a private streets with no on-street parking permitted. The roadways are designed to be 26 foot wide. And then each unit has a 2-car attached garage, as well as a driveway that could handle 2 cars at 21 foot deep between the units and the private roadways. That is another change that they made since last submittal, committing to the 21 foot driveway depth. When looking at the site as well, the applicant has committed to an additional 50 off-street parking stalls throughout the property, with the no on-street parking permitted to allow for more guest parking throughout the site. They've noted as well that they will have parking lot lighting that will be limited 12 foot high throughout the development. When looking at the landscaping and open space, again, the applicant is committing to over 30% gross open space within the development. The existing tree lines to the east and south outlined in red on this plan are noted to be maintained, and that the applicant has also committed to a landscape plan, which includes some treatment along Hill Road to help screen portions of the development from the public right-of-way, as well as providing the updated landscape table, which commits to planting approximately 449 trees on the site. That takes into account for every single building, as well as all the parking lot impacts that they're having within the facility. Taking a look at the architectural components, the applicant has updated all of the elevations to address some of the comments from the commission. This exhibit here shows how each building will have a different color scheme. That way no 2 buildings are the same color adjacent to each other within the site. The development pattern for the site has several different unit types, ranging from the smallest 2-unit buildings, medium 4-unit buildings, and the larger 6-unit buildings. All of these 6-unit buildings have the 2-story component centralized. So the images on the left show the 3 of the 4 different color schemes, as well as the 2, 4, and 6-unit building designs. When looking at the architectural diversity between each building, the applicant has come up with a pattern book up on the right to show that there are 3 different architectural elements that separate these buildings, make them unique from one another. The gable vent, gable pediment, and the split gable. Again, these 3 graphics show the separation between them. The split gable has a second gable on the garage elevation with a secondary siding. Looking at the gable vent, these units do not have the split gable, but have the straight across of the vent detail, front and back. And then looking at the gable pediment, This unit design has a little architectural detail on both long sides of the elevation. So the applicant came up with this graphic. I apologize, it's really hard to show this on the screen. But this graphic kind of shows how each of the building architectural changes between color and architectural style will vary. So these two views here are showing two of the streets within the development, how each of the buildings will be different from a color and massing standpoint, as well as some of the push and pull with their patios that are behind the facility, and then also their covered patios that are tucked in some of the units. This graphic is just showing the backs of the units on this side, an aerial showing the top view, and then the front of the units for orientation. Some of the things, again, with the units, the deviation between the units, you have the 2-unit design. Here's a blow-up of one of the unit types. The applicant is asking for consideration. When looking at a 4-unit design, here's kind of how that product, this particular building type, has the exterior patio and how it faces both the private side of the site and then also the roadway side internal to the site. And then the 6-unit design here, again, just showing how the different massing between the units alter throughout the property. The applicant has committed to special additional architectural commitments to the units that face Hill Road. Previously, they had 3 buildings, units 1 through 12 that faced Hill Road had additional architectural treatments, such as the covered patios with the railways, and then some elements with the stone water table. Based on feedback from the Planning and Zoning Commission, the applicant has added units 89 through 94, that's the unit that backs up to the pond, to have similar treatment to that design, and then also units 45 and 46, a 2-unit building on the north side of the site. I didn't have a color elevation of that design to present this evening. When looking at the development text as well, the applicant has provided a matrix for design elements that will be committed to achieving their interpretation of the residential appearance standards, Chapter 1198. Again, this includes building facade variation, siding color, separation, glass panels being required in the garage doors. But the design itself has been revisited to adjust to the Planning and Zoning Commission's comments. When looking at the signage detail provided in the submittal, again, the applicant showing 2 placeholders here, a sign at each entryway, a ground sign that will identify the neighborhood. So when staff was reviewing the criteria for the zoning map amendment here, found that the 2023 community plan does note this would be an appropriate site for future multifamily development. The updated development text and preliminary unit design has been shown to be compatible with the elements of the residential appearance standards. In regards to the access of traffic, utility services, the applicant has updated their submittal to provide a feasibility statement for how the proposed utility service will serve the site. The traffic study has been submitted for the 2 proposed access drives. The county has noted that for a line of sight and some items, there is no need for any improvements. However, with the existing configuration of the turn lane that's heading into Greengate to the opposite side of Hill Road, they're noting for a practicality standpoint to have a similar scenario turning into this development heading southbound on Hill Road. That way those cars are lining up, stopped, and you don't have conflicting traffic movements. The applicant has been made aware of that recommendation from the county, and that's something that staff, the city's traffic engineer support. When looking at the update to the plan as well, the applicant has increased the pedestrian connectivity around the site. When looking at the amendments to the public health, safety, convenience, comfort, prosperity, and general welfare. The preliminary development plan is identifying 4 deviations. One, to reduce the minimum unit size for the apartments, and second, to increase the density. The applicant has noted these deviations are to create a modern walkable development with the amenities that they're proposing. The remaining final deviations are geared towards the unit design with a smaller front porch and a shallower roof pitch. Both, the applicant has noted, are difficult to incorporate into the multi-unit building that they're proposing. With the proposed multifamily residential growth, again, it is noted in the 2023 plan as being appropriate. The site has sanitary sewer sub to it, and water is available as well. So staff is recommending that the zoning map amendment be recommended to council for adoption. The request to rezone the site for the multifamily matches the future land use plan adopted in the 2023 community plan, and the applicant with this revision has justified how this rezoning is in harmony with land use objectives and notes how the unit design and mix of sizes meets the intent of the residential appearance standards. When looking at the preliminary plan review basis, the applicant has noted that the proposed development is consistent with the purpose, intent, and standards of the zoning code. Again, they've addressed all deviations requested, have noted in their text how they're proposing these deviations result in a better quality of development. The preliminary development plan is in conformity to the 2023 community plan in terms of use and also pedestrian connectivity and meeting the residential appearance standards. The proposed development text provides concise information on setbacks, open space, roadway design, traffic, and other elements that contribute to an orderly development of land. And the preliminary development plan adequately identifies and justifies all modifications to the minimum development standards to promote a higher quality of development. This revised preliminary development plan has increased the pedestrian connectivity, again, which is promoted by the community plan. The building design regulations have been enhanced to meet the intent of the community plan as well. And that the preliminary development plan provides a mix in units ranging from 1-bedroom units to 3-bedroom units. Also provides some vertical interest by having all the 6-unit buildings feature a 2-story design in the center, which again provides the coordination and integration of individually designed buildings onto the property. So staff is recommending that the preliminary development plan 25001 also be recommended to City Council for adoption.
Questions for staff?
So the traffic study's been ordered, or will be, at what phase?
It's been reviewed by the city engineer, and they're in agreement with the study as provided. They did recommend that a left turn lane be provided going southbound for safety purposes, so you're not having offset left turns taking place. The county still is under review with the traffic study. Some revisions were resubmitted to them, and they're still reviewing that for the northern access point.
Is there a plan to improve that road?
With a left turn lane for southbound traffic.
Other than that, because it's more of the rural character than the thoroughfare type, or a,
Yeah, so there's no other improvements recommended in the traffic study.
is it on any of the transportation thoroughfare plans to improve the road?
No, not beyond a 2-lane roadway.
Not going to.
The proposed roundabout just south of there has no bearing on improvements, that stretch of between Basil Western and UC.
No, the only improvements that would be recommended would be north to the future connection of Meyer Drive. So from the roundabout up to where Meyer Drive essentially dead ends and doesn't connect, so that connection will take place with the development of the next out parcel.
Okay. What other questions for staff? And just a reminder for the commission, we are talking about both applications here interchangeably, so.
First minor for applicant.
So Mr. Moore, so our zoning code requires a maximum density in a PRD of 4 dwelling units, and they're proposing 6. which is one of the deviations, correct?
Correct, yes. So our preliminary development standards note that if you're going to deviate from those base standard requirements, you must indicate it on the plan. The recommendation is 4 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is asking that deviation to go to 6.
Any other questions for the applicant, or for staff? Okay, the applicant present?
Good evening. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your time last month as well. Looks like, I think, some chair changes here. Looks like a little bit of musical chairs, but that's okay. Once again, my name is Craig Moncrief. I'm an attorney with the Plank Law Firm. We've got Jason Kulik here. He's with Stark Enterprises. The applicant, Brian Burkhart with CEC, is also here as well. I think we put our boots on and went to work last month to bring something better before you today. And proud to say we have a recommendation of approval from staff and the CETA Land Use Committee. We've made multiple revisions. I'll try not to elaborate on what Andrew already went over, but want to hit a couple key points here. I think the biggest thing from a substantive perspective is the table that we've added to the development standards text, which elaborates a little bit more detail as far as the architectural standards. It used Chapter 1198 of the city's code, which is the residential appearance standards. The code requires a minimum, and these are four-sided architecture and vinyl siding requirements for enhancements. So the code, Chapter 1198, requires a minimum of 3 enhancements for front and rear walls, 2 for side walls. This is for four-sided architecture. What we're committing to is a minimum of 5 enhancements for front walls, 4 for rear walls, 3 for side walls. So going above meeting code and even exceeding code. For the vinyl sided requirements, there's a minimum of 2 additional enhancements in which we're committing to provide at least 2, in some instances 3 enhancements. That's in addition to, we had spoken last month about some additional rear wall and rear yard enhancements for the units that are close to Hill Road. And I know we had talked last time as well about expanding that to include some other units that are close to Hill Road, if not exactly on it. So we've updated that to include 8 additional units that will have that heightened rear wall, rear yard, to give it a little bit more of an aesthetic, I'd say, view from the road. So this way, when the new sidewalk is constructed, people are walking along Hill Road or driving along, it looks a little bit more kind of like a front yard standard. So those were the changes we made there. Other changes we made, more internal sidewalks. I think the big one was language and detail to the building facades to ensure that 2 buildings that are next to each other will not look the same or exactly the same. And the way to accomplish that is a few different ways. There's alternating foundations, stone or brick. The gable chart that's on the screen right now, as far as buildings having a little bit different of a garage aesthetic, color, height, things like that. So just kind of making it clear. Like I said before, added the sidewalks in the middle there. Included some language about the streets. I'd say, critical there being the prohibition of on-street parking. This development has plenty of parking available. Each unit will have a 2-car garage. In addition to that, they will have a driveway that is a minimum of 21 feet. Which helps alleviate concerns regarding cars in the driveway, maybe getting close to the sidewalk or things like that. Other than that, we added a minimum building setback, like I said. The one thing that is not in the text that we would like to add, either by red line or by condition, is language pertaining to the vinyl siding thickness. I know the Chapter 1198 mentions a minimum thickness of 0.046 inches. We're happy to commit to that to ensure that it's a standard that you expect as far as vinyl siding. In addition to that, asphalt shingles, making sure those are the 25-year true shingle, minimum weight of 240 pounds per 100 square feet. So that is the changes that we've made to advance the aesthetic and make this a little bit more of a more thorough site for you. A couple other points I want to reiterate is, one, the 2023 community plan. I know that was a long time coming for that plan, and it was a thorough review, and this project, I feel confident saying that it meets the goals of that plan, both from a land use perspective and then also some of the other elements they went into, things like connectivity, building location, fronting on internal streets, things like that. I think amenities are a big plus with this development. It's 122 units, and you usually don't see, I would say, this level of amenities for that type of development, more in the 200 range, where you're getting a pool, a clubhouse, pickleball courts, things like that. And I know the comp plan does list as an A priority residential development that meets market demand by person of all ages, incomes, and household sizes. I think that's a big deal. I want to elaborate a little bit on the current zoning of the property. It is kind of a unique situation. It has vested property rights. And I think one of the sneaky benefits of this development is that you have a strong zoning code. It's as simple as that. The current zoning code, as far as landscaping standards and things like that, the development as it currently is a 2001 zoning text that I wouldn't say has a ton of teeth to it. And by updating it, you can incorporate the modern zoning code standards, things like the 1 tree per 500 feet of building coverage. And we only get a credit for 4 trees, even though it would be maintaining the entire tree perimeter, which screens the east, south, and north boundaries of this property. You only get a credit of 4 trees, and it would require planting 449 new trees. So, things like that. The architectural standards, there's a lot of benefit to modernizing this development text and updating it to follow through on those standards. The traffic study, I know that was elaborated on. We are happy to commit to the request for a left turn lane heading south. That's no problem. I think it will require a little bit of road improvement in order to get that turn lane in there. In addition, I know right-of-way will be dedicated for this property. I know it has to be 35 feet from center. I don't know, do you know how much, is that about 10 extra feet from what the property is today? 5 extra feet. So land will be dedicated to be used as the city sees fit, and the sidewalk will be introduced along Hill Road. Some procedural notes. The city received a petition opposing the rezoning. It was signed by my count 29 individuals that own 22 properties. By my count, 20 of those 22 properties are in Violet Township, 2 are in Canal, Winchester. But with that said, we wanted to initiate a dialogue with residents to see if we could collaborate or just answer general questions. We hosted a informal neighbor meeting last Wednesday. It was at the community center. We sent a letter to everybody who signed the petition. We sent a letter to anybody within the notice area. Provided my phone number, said, if you can't make it, feel free to reach out. Had the meeting. I won't say attendance was grand by any means, but we wanted to at least show that effort. I personally commuted with the neighbor to the east who shares a pretty significant property line. They had some questions about drainage and kind of drainage coming across their property, which we contacted our engineer, told them what the plan was, to have a catch basin there to catch any water that comes across their property onto ours. I believe the property owner to the north, who's here today, has also reached out about connecting sanitary lines at least to their property line to make it a little easier for them. That's no problem. We can extend any sewer water line to the property line to help with that. No issues there. So that's what we've done since we last saw you. To summarize, look, I know apartments can be a challenging topic. I know it's not a beloved land use in a lot of realms, but I think it does make sense on this property. It fits the comprehensive plan. It is a transitional property. You've got about 300 acres of industrial to the south that will be developed, I think, pretty quickly here. So with that, I think it makes sense from a land use perspective to have multifamily here to buffer the single family, and it also fits well next to industrial. So Yeah, it's a development that meets all setback standards. It provides the trees along the perimeter, it'll provide the screening. You know, it meets and exceeds open space. It's got at least 30% open space, which is a big commitment, and things like height, it's gonna be mostly one-story buildings. And the density, I included a density chart in my letter, and it kind of goes through. It's, I would say for an apartment development, 6 acres of net density is on the lower end. It's lower than Redwood, it's lower than some of the other projects nearby. It's closer to Ryan Homes, so I think it's a respectful development with fairly major setbacks and fits in. I would say as far as the density goes, you know, it fits in what was planned in 2001 as far as getting that entire area to a density around 4 units per acre. I would say a typical planned district has kind of multiple sub-areas, multiple uses, where multifamily tends to be a little higher, and it's mixed in with some single-family that's lower to get it around 4. So I think it's hurt a little bit by the fact that it's a site-specific development. But I think it does fit the character of the neighborhood and kind of the density for that area. It's a thoughtful suburban development. So thank you for your time. I know there's other people here who would like to speak, and if you have any questions for us, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions, comments for the applicant?
I just want to make one comment. I want to thank you and your team for listening to the comments that the staff had and this board and making those adjustments. I know that's not always easy, and I want to thank you for putting in that effort.
Thank you.
So maybe a small math question. So we count the garage as a parking space, right? So every unit has a 2-car garage, and then there's space behind that in the drive. And it says the average is 3.45 per unit. That has to be at least 4 to get 2 and 2, and you have 50 extra spaces. I just want to make sure so each unit has a 2-car garage, right?
You're correct. I know, I'm thinking this over as well. Maybe this is why I'm a lawyer and not in the math profession.
So I just want to make sure if either we didn't lose garages or we didn't lose parking spaces.
No,
Yeah,
two-car garage is required on every unit. A 21-foot deep driveway is required on every unit
So
due
that's
to
2
the
additional
text.
spaces, yeah.
Correct.
So there's 4, and then you have an additional
And then there's
50
50 additional
spread around.
throughout the development.
It's 421 spaces for 122 units, so I think your math's better than mine. I think I might have gone off of what was required by code as opposed to the number of units.
Got it.
That's my guess.
Okay, thank you. The last time we spoke, one of the questions I had is you went, I mean, there's a lot of sidewalks, and I agree, I appreciate a lot of the effort that's been put into this. But there are just some like places where there aren't sidewalks. Like, and I don't know if that's been added since the diagram's not been added, or, so the one section here that has this one, there's a sidewalk stub at both ends, so the sidewalk just isn't completed clear around. Andrew, can you go to?
Yeah,
So
so
it's,
let me zoom in for you here.
you actually, yeah, so zoom back out here. Yeah, right there's the sidewalk stubs on both ends.
So the development update, Rick is not proposing sidewalks on both sides of every street. It is committing to sidewalks on one side of every street. So in this case, in this loop, it's on the west-hand side. On this loop, it's on the west-hand side. So where you see it stubbing is actually to provide a crosswalk to lead to another location.
Right, there's, I mean, I'd like to see that completed just to make it, you know, you're walking around a loop, oh, sorry, now I gotta walk across the street to complete my walk, you know, just things like that. I really like what we've tried to do with community plan to make things more accessible and walkable, and something like that's one of those easy things, just to connect the dots. Shall I continue?
Please.
Sorry, for some reason I just, it is a bit picky, but elevation D, I think it's the first one they show, Andrew, if you can get to that one. Nope.
Which
It's
one?
the two-story, I'm sorry,
Two-stories.
the two-story. There you go, that one.
Thank you.
So if you look at this one, it just looks really awkward. You look at some of the other two stories, and I think they actually have some appeal. So I don't know if it's just something as simple as trying to separate these or make them look like they're, but they just look like, oh, well, we had some space, we better put a window there. And this is probably, if you just flip to the one previous to that, I know we gave on the concession of the 412 pitch, but when you see rows of these, like you do over in Redwood, to me, it's just, I don't know, it looks like a pool barn. So I understand we gave on some of the concession for all of it being 612, but adding some 612s in here, I think would help break it up. And you know, we talked about the vertical appeal. I just think this has, it doesn't, so. I think those are most of my pet peeves with this.
So, thank you, Mr. Deeds. One of my questions was the pitch, because our conversation in the last meeting, you know, I know we discussed that. So, question for the applicant, and this might be for staff too. So, I understand the deviation for density, or where we want to be on density, but the deviation around the front porch minimum from 5 feet, or from 7 feet to 10 feet, from 5 to 8, what's the rationale with that?
Just the unit redesign that we would need to go through. It is, obviously it's not impossible to accomplish. It's just the man hours that would require just to make everything fit in there.
So man hours to have everything fit in there, and we're asking for a deviation of, so to reduce front porch size, and then, so what's the comment on, okay, so I appreciate that, so thank you. What's your feedback on the sidewalks not being on both sides of the road?
The sidewalks being, sorry, the sidewalks not being on both sides of the road, there's a couple of reasons. One reason, the code is just requires on one side for private streets. We've been trying to model off after the Redwood neighborhood. We know that they've been extremely successful. We feel that having sidewalks on one side of the street still accomplishes the interconnectivity you're looking for, although maybe not 100% connectivity, because the site is going to be designed to be FHA compliant, meaning you're going to have less than 5% driveway slopes, 2% roadway slopes. Crossing that street will not be a major challenge for anybody, for anybody, especially somebody that's handicapped.
Okay. What other questions or comments for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, we have two applications here that we're speaking of interchangeably, but we will focus on the first one, which is ZM 25-001. So I will now open it up for public hearing. If you're a member from the public, please come up, sign in, state your name. Once you begin to speak, you'll have 3 minutes. I'll kindly interrupt you with 30 seconds left. We will show the timer on the screen for your courtesy. If you're a member of the public and a comment has already been shared very similar to what you intend to share, I would just kindly ask you to refrain from coming up unless there's something you have to add. But we do want to hear from you, so at this time, in no particular order, if there's anybody who wishes to speak to us, please sign in, state your name for the record, and like I said, we'll start the clock when you begin to speak. There should be a sign-in sheet. Oh, they just gave it to me. Here you go.
Hello, my name's Kenny Orr. I live at 8115 Hill Road, between Busey and Kings Crossing. Better get my glasses out for this one. The land in question used to be the Pfeiffer family farm. I'm sure some of you folks know that. The Pfeiffer family farm, well, let me back up here. Ruth Pfeiffer was a long long resident of Canal, Winchester, and she loved Canal, Winchester. And again, that's something I think that if you knew her, you knew she loved it. I live on Hill Road. I bought my property from Ruth. Ruth loved this area so much, she took it upon herself to get the zoning done while she was still alive, because she cared about what happened to the old family farm that she loved so much. Her desire was for the land in question to be zoned what it currently is, assisted living. Ruth cared so much for the land her family farm sat on, she even donated parkland. And she didn't have to, but she did. And it's over on Busey Road. She stopped by one day and wanted to know what I thought of the zoning that she had planned. And of course, I didn't have any problem with it. We understand that things have to change as time goes on. But this change doesn't have to be. It can remain the way it is, and it can remain what she desired. Of course, she's passed away. We live on Hill Road. This area of Hill Road, per Canal Winchester zoning, was supposed to be low-density area. I'm sure most of you should know that, but that's what it was supposed to be. There's nothing about 122 apartments that says low-density. With the current homes and the new construction along with the rest of the additional 122 apartments in this area is like trying to put 10 pounds of candy in a 5-pound bag. Too many people, too many cars. The benefits of rezoning benefits someone, but it does not benefit the residents of Hill Road. We live on Hill Road. Do any of you live on Hill Road, may I ask? No?
30 seconds, sir.
Okay. This road is already jam-packed. If you live on Hill Road, you would know no traffic study is needed. We live on Hill Road. Traffic studies can be made to say basically anything someone wants it to say. But we live there. We know. Right now, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. With the addition of 122 apartments, this would most likely add 2 to 3 cars per unit, husband, wife, and student. At a minimum, 2 cars. So let's take 2 cars times 122, that's 244 cars. Simple math. We would be adding that to an already congested area, by the way. I currently have to wait for traffic to get in, to, and out of my driveway. I have to wait. That's ridiculous how long I have to wait sometimes. I plead with the zoning commission to choose the residents of Hill Road over the rezoning of this land. It can, in fact, stay zoned the way it is. The rezoning in question is to change what Ruth Pfeiffer wanted when she would not have wanted 122 apartments. The high density, obviously, is over on Diley Road. That's where it was supposed to stay. But now we're changing Hill Road into Diley Road, it seems. I ask those involved in the desire to rezone this property to please respect the concerns of the residents of Hill Road who have not only invested in their homes, but have also for many years invested into the tax base of this community. I respectfully asked the zoning commission to ask yourselves a question. Would you want 122 apartments next to your house? Simple as that. We live on Hill Road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Tom King. I live next...
Sir, real quick, you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, so
Yeah, I
could-
signed in. So
Okay, could you please take an oath?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give and tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay. I live next door to Kenny on Hill Road. I'd be basically right across the street from the pond that they have designated there. My wife and I bought our houses there when we were 23 years old. So you guys know the change in the whole neighborhood, the whole Canal Winchester district. I mean, it's, as a young man, you know, buying a house there, it was like $130,000 then. Wow, a lot then. Now that's peanuts to buy a home. But, you know, like Kenny said, talk to Ruth. She said that was going to be assisted living over there, donated it to a church at one point in time, ended up getting it back, kept it zoned assisted living. I have an 80-year-old mother. Hey, that'd be pretty close to me there, you know. Like Kenny, I agree. I mean, I'm okay with leaving it zoned assisted living, you know, 44 condos, a retirement home. But I paid my house off last month, 28 years to pay it off. I paid well over $500,000 for my $130,000 home. And I often think, man, wow, I could almost get all the money I paid for my house back. But I don't see how 122 apartment units is going to increase the values of the surrounding homes in the area. When they started the development to the west of that, they literally mulched that entire beautiful woods there. They had mulched half of it right up to Greg Biggis's house there. Mulched it, didn't select cut it, didn't use the timber for nothing. They mulched it to nothing. There's been bald eagles in that field lately. There's been turkeys, there's been deer, you know, coyotes galore. You know, the home, Green Gate they put behind me, they called it condos so that they could stack them 10 feet apart. I mean, I love Woodstream over there, how they have yards have an acre. I mean, maybe not quite an acre, but they're big yards that, you know, people care about. They mow them and keep them looking good. They landscape it. They have yard sales in that unit, in that area. That's awesome. But the traffic has become so horrible on Hill Road that you say you do traffic studies. I do traffic studies every time I try to back my trailer in, and I pray that this ain't the time that somebody sideswipes me or slams into me, because they won't slow down. I can flash my lights. I can try to cut my trailer in the way, you know, a normal man would in his driveway, and it's like anxiety from the minute I come around the curve till I get there. I don't believe Hill Road can handle the extra traffic. Honestly, they should stop all the building. I mean, when is enough enough? That's not the neighborhood that I bought into as a young man, you know, and raised my son and seen most of you at sporting events over the years, and, you know, the town get-togethers and stuff. But it's just, I just don't believe Hill Road can handle the extra traffic. Again, it's supposed to be low density. It's supposed to be a retirement home, assisted living area, 44 condos, not 122 units. It's supposed to be 4 units per acre, not 6 units per acre. I just want to say thank you guys for your time, and you know, you folks, you're doing a fine job, but I'm sure this isn't your first one, so it should be pretty cut and dry, pretty easy for you to make it look good. But thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Neighbors, thank you.
Please. Again? Okay, did you sign in?
Yes, sir, I did. I'll swear again. You want me to?
Nope, I got you.
I've been in the construction business since I've been 15 years old, okay? And we came out here to Canal Winchester 35 years ago and bought this old farmhouse, and it was zoned when we bought 1 house per acre and a half. We thought that'd be a great idea. And then Mr. Biggis and Mr. Straight got together and decided to develop their land. And we was thinking, okay, we'll be okay. They'll let us develop ours. But we kind of got washed out of that when went from 1 acre per house to 6 houses per acre. And you mentioned the elevation. It's a picky point. No, it's not a picky point. Because behind me, they put this dirt up 8 feet high, packed it down, and then put a 36-foot house on top of it. That's directly behind me, 50 feet away. So, no, it's not a picky point. So elevation would be a main concern. So anyway, we lost the value of our house when we came out there. But Mr. Straight compensated us. So the tax man devalued our property. And so we were ready to take them to court, but Mr. Straight went ahead and compensated us. I am in a tough position right here. We moved out here to this old house, and my wife, she said, I love this country house. Michael, you're in construction. Why don't you remodel it? And you know as well as I do, it's easier to tear that house down and rebuild. But I went ahead to save my marriage and went ahead and built and remodeled this house. And I put a lot of money into it. It looks beautiful. You go past my house, it's all brick from southern Georgia. So, but I can't recoup the money out of my house unless I get cooperation. I'm in a bad spot because I have neighbors here that I lived with for 30 years. And I don't want to say I'm against everything, but I'm for the way it is zoned at this moment. The way it is zoned at this moment, I'm okay with that. But when you put 144, it's going to devalue my house. So it puts me in a position where I got to get some money back. And if they're going to put this in, I got to have some compensation. And I'm willing to go to whatever it takes to get it. But I have talked to these people, and they said they'd give me sewer so I can develop my land. I talked to Mr. Lucas. He said he could help me maybe develop my land. So I'm for that. So I don't know. I just hope you all do the right thing, make the right decisions by my neighbors. If it's for me, I'm not worried about developing my land. Leave it the way it is. My neighbors will be happy. I'm for that. But if you're going to do this, I need compensation. I need some help. And that road that you have right next to me that comes in on the north side, if you notice that, I need a decel lane so I can even get in my driveway. I can't even get out of my driveway now. So you got to help me with a decel lane to get out of my driveway if you do this. But on the record, for my neighbor's sake, no, I'd leave it the way it is. It's a nursing home. I'll probably move into it in 5 years. So that'd be great with me. But if you're going to do this, I got to have some help, okay?
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
How y'all doing?
You sign in, sir?
I'm signed in,
Okay, could you please state your name?
Charles Davis.
Thank you, Charles.
All right. I live at 8021 Hill Road, and I've experienced a lot in my life. And one thing I will say that one of the worst things I experienced is when you live in an apartment complex, and everybody knows that the longer they stay up, the more trashy, the more dangerous it gets, right? And, you know, also, like my neighbors were saying, the traffic is horrible. I leave out of my house at 5:30 in the morning. I have to be there at 6. Now, I'm not saying it takes me 20 minutes to get out of my driveway or nothing like that, but it does take, you know, 5, 6 minutes, sometimes 7 to 8 minutes. And this is at 5:30 in the morning. Cars are doing, you know, 70 and 80 miles an hour down the street. They act like they don't even care if you pulling out or not, you know, and like Tom said, trying to back a trailer in there, people, they blow their horns, they cuss you out, they give you the finger, you know, different things like that, just to even back up into your, you know, house. Okay, so it's just going to get trashy. Look at Winchester Lakes, look at some of the other places. And like my other neighbor said, it is going to devalue our homes, you know? So, there you go.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
I have not signed in, but can I?
Come on up, sign in, state your name. We won't start the clock until you begin to speak, ma'am.
I don't have a lot to say, but I do have a few things.
Go ahead and sign in and state your name for the record, and the floor is yours.
My name is Roberta Miller. I live at 8283 Hill Road. We are currently across the road from the new development that's being made. I am tired of trash in my yard, the dirt on Hill Road, the speed. It's supposed to be 35 miles an hour. I saw a truck the other day hit my yard at 80 miles an hour. I have grandkids that play in the front yard. I cannot back this. I hope you do not either. Just for the fact that our neighbors here, we're tired of the trash, we're tired of the traffic, and we're tired of the building. We've pulled out of our driveway, we have replaced 2 tires on our car because of nails on Hill Road. I thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Karen Lombardo, and I had not planned on talking, but one of the things that I'm also concerned about, the traffic and the traffic study done, does not consider, I don't think, the 164 houses that are going into Southampton, correct? And then the apartments, there's going to be even more traffic, but the other concern is the schools. We were told at the meeting that there would be, out of the 122 apartments, 16 kids, students. If you have 2 and 3 bedroom homes, there's going to be more than 16 kids. I really feel that that number is way off, and that I used to teach school, and if the schools have a huge influx that this is going to create with the new subdivision and the apartments, class sizes are going to go up. Like I said, I've taught 18 or 20 kids, and I've taught a classroom with 35 kids. It's unreal, the difference that you can do to teach. And I think it would really hurt the schools for all these to go in. And like I said, it concerns me. And I don't have kids in the system, but I am very concerned about the schools and the kids' education. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give, tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
And if you could state your name for the record.
Kendrick Price.
Thank you.
Good evening, how's everybody doing? So we live on Greengate Boulevard in Greengate Cove. We moved there back in July of '22. And one of the main reasons why we moved there is, one, because we were told that that parcel of land that sits on the opposite side of the road was going to be a retirement home, old folks home, what have you. So we had no problem with that. We've been there almost 3 years this July, and since we've been living on Greengate Boulevard, I've seen twice with my own eyes where the state trooper had come through there because people are already speaking through our neighborhood already on Greengate Boulevard. And I think from what you all was saying that the traffic will be routed through Greengate Boulevard, well, I don't think that's safe. I've seen sheriffs, I've seen state troopers come through there, stop people for speeding just through there. So if you're talking about having more traffic coming through, I think that's gonna be a problem, We have multiple neighbors that have children that they had to put signs that said, please don't speed, our children play here. We've seen it several times, and that's the biggest concern. And like everybody else, with all the construction going on, there's always trash, or nails or debris, messing up tires, things, what have you. And so that's our biggest concern, but from the aspect of the safety, somebody get hurt or get hit by a car, and it's a new subdivision already, and, with more people coming, bigger apartment complex, I think it's just gonna be more of an issue. I just want to add that. I don't know if that means anything, but I think we're just against it, so this is our concern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is David Summers. I live at 8442 Hill Road. Bring up a couple points that have already not been brought up. For the traffic study, I think they're going to need additional turning lanes in Green Gate. There's 250 units comparable to this proposed area. So I think they're going to need turning lanes coming to and from. Southampton, right now I counted, the signs say lot number 79, but on the map when I went inside there's only 60. They have a turning lane, a deceleration lane, as it were. So, you know, that might be needed for both of the entrances to this new area. Because we already have 250 new homes, and we have close to maybe 80 being built currently. You know, we have a few now. And so I think locally this will increase the traffic a lot. I guess a question I might have about the traffic study, which I'm glad to hear about the turning lanes, have they included all of the proposed construction going on? Because when it's all done, we have to live there. Another point I don't think anybody's mentioned this evening is the flooding. It's a routine thing every year that it floods, and we're not talking about a 100-year flood. It's an annual thing. And now with all the construction going on, there's a lot less grass or field for the water to be absorbed. And now we're going to have pavement and roofs that the drainage is going to go someplace. I would ask about the study about flooding. Was a study done on that parcel alone? Or was a study done on that parcel and the surrounding area? If the study was done on that parcel, I'm sure they don't have a flooding problem. They took care of it. But what about everybody else around? We're going to get the runoff, especially those that are down the road a piece. And as far, so concerns about those, and when you look at the way it is supposed to be zoned now for the assisted living, when you have assisted living in 44 units, I would expect a lot less traffic because it's assisted living. Not as many cars as needed. So I'm one that would opt for the zoning the way it is, to leave it alone. I know that there are powers that be that are higher than I, but if you would consider the residents that are there, and as far as those who signed the other petition, I don't, do any of them live on Hill Road down there? I don't know. But for many of us that are there, the traffic is increasing significantly. And I've seen tires squeal, people lay on the brakes, and I get signals pointing into my driveway many a time because I have to slow down. I'm sorry. And I start flashing a quarter of a mile back. I turn on my turning signal to give them a heads up. Guys, I'm turning into my driveway. And yet I get the hand signals. So please consider us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I need to be sworn in,
All right, sir.
or sworn at, maybe.
I can do either. Do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give, tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
Yeah, for the first time in my life, I'll do that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your honesty.
My name is Joe Jester. I live at 8470 Hill Road. I have Hill Road coming up one side, joining Busey Road and going in front of my house. So I know what the traffic is, and all my good neighbors have all mentioned the traffic. The one thing I want to mention is where I live. I built that house 30 years ago, and I wanted to live there the rest of my life. I had a beautiful view of Chestnut Ridge and everything back through there. That's all gone due to the density, and I look at the place across the road from Dave and Kenny beside him, and I look at a place called Greengate, and the houses in there, as Kenny put it, he said, if you lived in one of those houses, you could put your arm out the window, and the guy next to you could put his arm out the window, and you'd touch each other. That's how dense that is. And the other thing is, you talk about the driveways, that's good, but if you ever go down and look at this Greengate, you'll see cars all up and down the streets in there. They're not in the driveways, and that's really, I'm sure, hard to get around in there. The next thing I want to mention, I had my house landscaped when I built it, and I had a beautiful row of trees down Busey Road. And in the time I've lived there, the number of accidents and so forth, I have 2 maple trees now right at the curve, and I have one, I don't even know what kind of tree it is, across my driveway. And all the rest of the trees have been wiped out through accidents. And the number of accidents have increased. It's very dangerous on that curve. And as the traffic has increased, the accidents have increased since I've lived there. So this is a very big concern of mine, because I'm afraid I have great-grandchildren and little grandchildren, they play in the yard, and somebody comes around there. They come around there so fast. I'll give you an example. My wife and I backed out of the driveway and started west on Busey, and a car come around the corner so fast, and it was wet, and it spun around, and as I was coming out of the driveway, if I hadn't have been alert, it would have been a terrible collision. He ended up in my yard and pretty far down. Took out one tree. Then the second example I can give of that, some fellows decided they want to rob garages over there, and the sheriff got onto it, and he was chasing them. And they come around that curve, did the same thing. They took out another one of my trees, and the sheriff started chasing them with flashlights and guns, which was kind of nerve-wracking. But anyway, I'm not trying to say anything immoral or anything like that. I just want to make the point that it's very dangerous there on that curve on Hill Road and Busey Road. And I just hope that in some manner you can use your judgment in this case. And I appeal to you as an old guy. I turned 90 years old on October the 1st, and I retired from Meals on Wheels. I was a volunteer for 25 years on Meals on Wheels. And the place where I delivered was over by Refugee Road and Bryce Road and back in there. And if you're familiar, that's a lot of apartments. And I was delivering when they were building the apartments, and I saw them when I quit. And it's 2 different scenarios, I'll tell you. And it's dumpsters. People don't respect dumpsters. They throw their furniture in there. They miss the dumpster. Then the trucks that come in to get them have front-end loaders. The front-end loaders pick the stuff up, throw it back over the truck, and the trash goes both sides. But the drivers and the toters don't stop to pick it up. That's up to the people that live there, and they're not real good about it. Then the other thing that's very unsightly there is the furniture they throw where the dumpsters are. They'll throw out sofas, they'll throw out chairs, and then the third thing is their hygiene's not real great. Especially if you have to deliver where you go between buildings and up, kids in there playing and so forth. And so anyway, I think that's something we should take into consideration. Do we want that for our neighborhood or not? And my 3 minutes are probably up.
They are, and I appreciate your comments, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
My name's Mike Lombardo, and I live at 8380 Hill Road. And the thing that I'm concerned about in this type of scenario is, and I know it goes both ways with housing and apartments, I'm concerned about the loss of value of my house. And apartments, because people don't own them, they usually, I mean, I can't say this blanketly, but they don't normally take care of them, at least the ones I've seen. Don't take care of them as well, and that will drop the value of the housing in the area more. And the other thing I'd like to say is about the traffic study, which you've heard about, is I never saw anybody lay out the strips that I'm used to for them counting cars and directions and everything. But you gotta take into consideration all the traffic's currently there, all the traffic that's coming from Southampton in the future, and Green, whatever the green one was. And then this is on top of that. So I just want, that I agree that the traffic is nuts now, and I don't see it getting any better. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to speak?
Can I make one point?
Sure.
Just when this product, when this area was zoned, that was 2001, and there was no 450 houses to the east. There was no 500 houses going on to the west. None of that was happening at that time when it was zoned for the assisted living, okay? But now we have all that, and you want to increase. I don't think it's a good idea. That's all.
Thank you. All right, so we've got ZM 25001, so that will be the public hearing for that application. So I'll need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Paulsgrove, second by Ms. McDonald. Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie? I think we should.
Mr. Ritchie was excused from the meeting at 7:29 PM this evening.
Mr. Woldenfeller?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
So, kind of order of operations here, so ZM 25001, we need a positive vote to be recommended to City Council for adoption. If the motion does not carry, then neither would preliminary development plan 25-001, is that correct, staff? Would we still take a vote on
These are two
that?
separate recommendations.
Okay.
Both would be a recommendation to council, so if it was a positive recommendation from the commission, it'd be recommended with a positive recommendation to council. If Planning and Zoning Commission fails to make a positive recommendation this evening, it would be recommended to council the same with a non-positive recommendation.
Okay. And so a reminder for the public that this body is responsible for using our best judgment on what the applicant has provided us and the public feedback that we've been given and the appropriateness of the land use and the interpretation of our zoning code. If these applications do have a positive or negative recommendation to City Council, there still will be opportunity to speak to council because they're the ultimate body that will either approve or deny this project. So we this evening will be voting or recommending to council for a zoning map amendment change and a preliminary development change. And we will, if this is further down the road adopted by City Council, a final development plan would come through this body for the project.
That's correct.
And one more clarification before we vote on this. Do we need to make a formal vote on the application that was tabled, or was the letter that was provided by Sheets Incorporated sufficient to table?
I think we need to make a vote to table the application. I would just recommend that we do that after you vote on this item.
Okay, so Mr. Secretary will do that at the end.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion on ZM 20-25-001? Before we make
I
it?
do.
Sure.
I always do. I have one question for staff. The discussion from the residents about the nursing home being zoned into this property, was that ever deed restricted?
No, so the, get on the right screen here. So the property was approved, the current zoning for the property was approved with ordinance 52-01 in September of 2001. That zoning had a gambit of different planned components to the entire 300-acre tract. The area in red, which is the site we're talking about this evening, was designated as a PRD. And then as part of that PRD, the approved uses was for an assisted living or independent living facility with a maximum of 44 detached condos and or an assisted living facility with no capacity on the maximum density. So the only thing this site was limited to was 3 stories in height and assisted living. So
Sure.
there was no set number that limited how many units could be in that facility. The only limitation was if they were to incorporate a detached condo product in addition to the assisted living, it was at 44 units.
Okay, so thank you. The question really is, and because I heard the residents talk about this was promises that were made, they built their house, they bought their properties because they believed that this assisted living was going to go in. But a deed restriction is the only legal way that that could be promised, in my experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, zoning can always be changed.
Right,
through
so
this
zoning
process.
can always be changed. And what I've seen is it's always changed every 5 to 10 years anyway, and I know that this is really hard for the residents. I do listen to you, I did empathize with you. The next thing that I have is, and I think it's a good question, and it's for the development, and it's really about the management of the property, because they have brought up several complaints about how properties decay, and people are not going to take care of them, and the trash isn't picked up. And I know that from personal experience. So what are your plans for management of the property?
Yeah, so currently our plans right now are to maintain long-term. We have 3 neighborhoods that are under construction currently, same type of product across the nation, 2 in Florida, 1 in North Carolina, and we're investigating 10 to 12 right now. So the plan is to maintain long-term. We do have an on-site maintenance team that will be there daily, leasing team that will be there daily as well. And one thing I'd like to just point out is that, if we are not maintaining our product, that's a negative, it's negative to us. Our goal is to, lease these out, make money, and, by not maintaining this, we simply won't be able to lease these. People want to live in a nice neighborhood, and that's hopefully what we can provide for them.
So am I hearing you say you'll have property maintenance? Will you also have a leasing agent?
Yes,
On staff?
on staff, yes.
And then will they be people that they can contact 24/7?
Yes.
If the residents are finding that there's issues?
Yes, absolutely. And one other thing I'd like to point out is, I know a lot of, there's been comments that I've heard and from other projects and for this project as well, the neighborhood will, bring trash into the neighborhood, just not great demographic. And one thing I'd like to point out is that in order to lease with us, everybody has to pass a background check, and there is a credit check as well. There's income requirements to lease here. So we are trying to, limit the amount of, negative residents in the neighborhood.
Does each resident have garbage disposal? Are you having pickup or? are
Yes,
there- okay.
yes. Each one will have their own.
Have their own?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I think the last thing that I just want to talk about really is the traffic study.
Yeah.
Traffic studies, and I don't know about this one because I don't know how it was put out to bid, but they typically look at all the development that is there and is coming when they make a decision, and you're not probably going to see strips that are counting cars because there are formulas that engineering can use in order to make their determination of what they're recommending for that road. And I think Mr. Deeds asked the question about, is there more road improvements planned for this area? Because as it does grow, there may be a need for that, and it's just a comment, really. It's
Yeah, so I can address the study. So,
Okay, great.
Generally, the study has a 10-year time horizon. So we look at, the current, and then we look and project 10 years out, what traffic will be. And that's based off traffic counts that are taken. And then MORPC, which is the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, which is the transportation planning agency for Central Ohio, they provide growth rates. So generally, those are provided. In this study's case, they didn't have those available when they started the study. So they used the assumptions in the rates from the Green Gate Cove neighborhood, that study. Since then, they've received the MORPC assumptions, and what they used was higher than what MORPC's rates are. So they projected, based on all the development out here, that Hill Road, north of Kings Crossing, traffic's going to increase 2.3% a year. Hill Road South, 3.6%. And so those are the rates that are used, and those exceed MORPC's assumptions, which is the Transportation Planning Agency, in all cases, in every roadway that they used. And part of that reason that the traffic, those rates are assumed is because there's new connections that are going to take place. So you're going to have more distribution of traffic. So Green Gate Boulevard will be extended to Diley Road this year. And so that'll change the distribution of traffic that's going on Hill Road. More traffic will go through Green Gate over to Diley Road.
Great, thank you. And I think lastly, we always hear a lot of complaints about traffic, speeding, and garbage. And, those are handled through other agencies, and it's not that I want to deflect that, but it is handled through other agencies and not really a reflection of this. So in my review of this, I understand those are problems, but would not be a part of my decision. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have one other question for the developer. There was a mention of the estimated number of students.
Yes.
Can you tell me how you came to that?
Yeah, so we have average across our portfolio is 0.12 minors per unit. So if you were to take that and multiply that by 122 units, you come up with 16 minors. Admittedly, those projects are, they're not geared towards older adults, but they are in older adult neighborhoods, I guess you could say, in older adult cities, I guess you could say. So that number could be a little bit higher here. We're just going off of our portfolio average. I did reach out to Kia Hunt with the school district. She said that they have the capacity to handle, I told her the statistics that, we have right now. She did say that, we have the capacity to handle 16, obviously, or if there's higher, the mayor, I also talked to the mayor, right after our neighborhood information meeting we had last week, he also said the same thing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will tell you that the adjacent Redwood community, those are all two-bedroom units. There are 329 units total. There are 11 students in those 329 units. At least that was last year's
Yeah.
count, I don't know.
Well, an interesting tidbit is when we were with the community plan last year, the gentleman that ran that is of the younger generation, and many of the people in that generation prefer to rent, not buy. And so I think the renting demographic, especially in like this community in North Redwood, is a bit different than what the traditional demographic we would associate with apartments.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will need a motion. And this would be a recommendation to City Council for adoption.
I'll make it. I would move that we recommend to City Council the adoption of ZM 25-001.
Second?
Motion made by Ms. Gooden, second by Mr. Deeds. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Palsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Woldenthaler?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
All right, PDP 25-001. So I will open this up for public hearing if there's anybody else that wishes to speak. 3 minutes.
Let's not take long. They say that, you know.
Hold on, sir. Can you please state your name again?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Charles Davis,
It gets on the recording.
8021 Hill Road.
Thank you, Charles.
They say that, you know, they got leasing agents and all this, you know, people make all this money and stuff like that. But what about 10 years down the line? You know, what about, 12 years down the line when we're still in our house and they don't care? You know what I mean? It's just going to jack us up. So I just wanted to add that in there. Also, what about the water flow and all that stuff? The water pressure and all that, you add 144 units. It might sound stupid, but it's gonna be hard to flush our toilets and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So, there you go.
Thank you.
My name is David Summers, 8442 Hill Road. The developer has made great commitments to meeting the minimum standards. Might I say the minimum standards, and they really tout that, we exceeded this, we exceeded this. Well, and they're currently building other properties. And so my question is, again, as the others, what's it going to look like down the road? Yeah, they're going to have staff available. Are they going to be full-time staff? Are they going to be on site? Are they really going to be there? Then the question is, by what standard are they going to have to keep it clean? And of course, they're going to do background check and anything else. But that doesn't mean the person's neat. So my concern is if this goes forward, that what is it going to look like? To what standard will they be held to maintain this? Because right now, if I heard it correctly, and I don't hear well, is that there's no place to look at to see how they have performed over the past 5-10 years. At least nothing nearby. So by what standard are they going to have to keep the place clean and neat? Because I have also rented, and that's when I was younger, And so we have all probably seen places that went downhill. And it's sad. It's not right, but it happens. So to what standard will this be held to? By a developer who makes a promise that it will be clean and neat, and they don't live there. And they'll probably never drive there. I don't know. It's just a concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you allowed to answer questions if I ask?
I'd prefer you just to make comments in your 3 minutes if they haven't already been shared, and we'll try to address them through discussion.
Just think when you go home tonight, just ask yourself, is it going to help my neighbors here for this project? Is it going to improve their property? Is it going to help them? Ask yourself that tonight when you go to bed. I hope you don't forget it. No. Is it going to help? Is it going to help these people? Going to increase the value of their property or decrease it? If it decreases it, I think you owe money.
Tom King, 8033 Hill Road. It would sure be nice to know who would be accountable if you allow the building of our city canal to continue. You're turning Hill Road into Diley Road, let's hope. Let's not hope it turns into Gender Road, okay? When the accident starts happening, who's accountable? When the floods come through my yard and finally one time comes into my home, who's accountable for that? You know, who's gonna pay for those damages? Who's gonna pay when somebody T-bones me, not even trying to back in, just pulling into my driveway? Somebody's gotta be accountable. I mean, you know, you've heard the community, you've heard the neighbors talk about it. It's not that we don't want more, I mean, I don't want more building at all. You know, it's enough's enough, you know, just the ones that are on Hill Road back behind us now, going in front of us, now going on behind that. Then you go across to Amanda Northern, they're developing that complete 217 acres there. You know, what's that gonna do to Pickerington Road getting on 33 there? But somebody's gotta be held accountable for this. If you guys agree to turning what was 44 units of assisted living into another 122 units. Somebody's got to be held accountable for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Paulsgrove,
Second by
Ms. Gooden. Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Willenthaler?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
All right. We'll need a motion for PDP 25-001. Again, this would be a recommendation to City Council for adoption, and staff or the applicant, if there's anything you wish to address from those public comments, please feel free before. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, stormwater, that'll be accounted for in the study that's done when the property gets to the final development plan stages. Obviously, they're required to account for off-site drainage, as well as on-site drainage and the increase in the absorption factor into that. So those items will be addressed with any future development of the site.
Who provides police service for that? It's a combination, right?
It'd be Canal Winchester through the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office through our contract.
Okay.
And then, you know, we've amended the speed limits on the portions of Hill Road, which are in Canal Winchester's corporate limits. The portions that remain in the county are unposted, so those are 55 miles per hour. The way to lower speed limits is if we control both sides of the road, but that's all property owner driven.
Should I comment?
No, ma'am.
We understand we're trying to help educate with some of what we do and don't have. I think the other thing that might be worth mentioning is they're talking about the property like 10 years down the road and what happens. The gentlemen at the end here are responsible for, we as a city have a property maintenance code, and they're responsible for complaints driven. So I think they do a darn good job keeping the city in pretty good shape, given everything that's going on and everything that, all the residents that we have, so. The last thing, before we have a vote on this, there were a couple items that were brought up that, do we ask for input from the developer at this point in time, the applicant at this point in time, or do we wait till we get the final development plan?
What were the questions?
Well, I think the 6-1 pitch, I'm sorry, the 6-12 pitch, like the elevation D, I think elevation D is probably more of a minor thing that,
I mean, the elevation specifically can be addressed. The 412 pitch is within the development text, so if that is something we desire to see amended, that would need to be done as part of the zoning.
Yeah, so the applicant is requesting a deviation to decrease that 612 pitch.
right?
So if Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation to council, either having some foresight on how to articulate getting that deviation due to be modified or removed, or, you know, if the applicant wants to explore looking at that particular component a little further, you know, they could table preliminary development plan 25001 that is currently on the scope for vote this evening to another meeting to bring back some changes, or it could simply be that's a condition that some members would like to see, maybe some other members would not like to see.
That's true.
And it could change, you know, how each individual member votes on that this evening. Again, that is really a conversation I think you would want to have with the applicant, not staff. But the way it is written, they're asking for a deviation to reduce that requirement.
And so both the roof pitch and the porch depth are both in section F of the code, so that's on page 6.
And to be really clear when working with the applicant, those two deviations are only required to be deviations because of the 2-unit building designs. So the chapter 1198 for the residential appearance standards applies to 1, 2, and 3-unit buildings. So that deviation's only in the text this evening because they have a 2-unit building design. If they did not have any 2-unit building designs, then it's not a deviation they're asking for. It's just not something they're promoting as meeting in the residential appearance standards. So there's a combination of things happening with this text. All the 2-unit buildings need to meet chapter 1198. The community plan suggests every type of multifamily project meets 1198. So one's a suggestion, one's a requirement. So some of the deviations being requested are for only the several 2-unit buildings that they have in the site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. That's helpful. Any further comments, questions, Mr. Deeds? Or anybody?
So I think the comment, and I think it's really a request, since we've brought up those two issues, if the motion is to approve this and send it to city council, this is just a preliminary plan. If we could do maybe a condition that says we would like the development to consider different roof lines, different porch sizes before they bring back a final development plan, would that satisfy, would that at least put them on notice that we care about those things?
I think you can have that conversation with the applicant this evening.
Okay.
And, you know, that can carry forward to a city council review.
Okay.
Part of the, I think, discussion is the zoning map amendment that was voted on approved the number and type of development density. And then if the preliminary plan text itself, you know, can have those adjustments based on either conditions this evening or conditions of approval, or like I said, it could be how a member votes this evening if they don't feel something's being adequately addressed, or, there's a request for the applicant to come back. Again, that's really a dialogue. I think the applicant can be much more beneficial in letting you know what their path is than me.
Sure.
I think it's clearly on record what the
Okay.
desire is, so we'll, if you want to put it as a condition, as a suggestion, obviously it'll be there, whether it's at this stage or when we come back for a final development plan, it's clear what your goals were. So we're, my suggestion would be a condition to look into it, because, yeah, that's exactly what we'll do. When we get to council level, we'll look further into it and let you know if that's an issue.
Okay, great.
Second, his thoughts.
Does that answer your?
It does.
Okay.
I was just trying to figure out how to get the message to the developer, but also be able to relay that to city council, that this is something that we're continuing to look at before we hit final development.
Okay. Does anybody care to make a motion?
I'll try,
Please.
unless Mr.
Please.
Dietz wants to do
No,
it.
I'm going to let you try.
I would like to make a motion that we make a recommendation to city council for PDP 25-001 to approve the preliminary development plan with a recommendation that the developer review roof elevations and porch dimensions before submitting a final development plan. Second.
Motion made by Ms. McDonald, second by Ms. Gooden. Any further discussion or clarification?
Could I interrupt for 1 second?
Yep.
Chairman, one thing also just to keep in mind, the recommendations from Planning and Zoning Commission can be modified, changed, deleted by council if they choose to adopt the process. So I think,
Understood.
just so that's clear with the commission, I think the way that it was worded tonight is good to let them know on record that you have those things to be concerned about. The only comment I would have is the word recommendation to review. Who's reviewing that? The way the path is set up is it'd be council reviewing those two items. So just keep it clear that if you're recommending review, it would be council doing that further review, not this board. So they would be adopting that as part of the zoning text, and then you would be responsible for enforcing whatever council deemed was appropriate during the final development plan. Just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that was abundantly clear to the 6 of you before a vote was cast.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Deeds, roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Pelsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wildenthaler?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
All right, so PDP 25-001 has been recommended to city council for adoption.
Who seconded that, please?
That was
I did.
motion made by Ms. McDonald, second by Ms. Gooden. We do need to go back and make a formal table of VA 25-001 per the applicant's request. So obviously the public hearing will be held at the time we hear that application, likely in the April meeting.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we table VA-25-001 until the April meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. McDonald. Roll call?
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Pelsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wildenthaler?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds.
All right, so VA 25-001 is on the table until April.
For old and new business, the zoning code steering committee met with the consulting group OHM and Zone Co. a few weeks back to discuss their role in the zoning code rewrite. 11-person group in that steering committee. This was really an introductory meeting to get everybody more familiar on how zoning works, what the goals are with this update, and then just some hot topic zoning items to kind of frame some future conversations. So thank you, Deborah and Rick, for sitting in on that. I know you guys are a little more well-versed than some of the other people on that commission. But OHM and Zone Code did send a follow-up email to you guys with some helpful links. Feel free to share that with the rest of the board. You know, some of those hot topic items, some of those YouTube videos on intros to form-based code zoning, I think those are all pretty helpful, at least, you know, for a refresher for all of you guys sitting on this commission. So looking forward to more of that process. And then
Yeah, so we have a housing council, and planning and zoning commission is required to appoint someone to that housing council. The housing council meets once annually to review all properties that are receiving a real estate tax exemption. Mr. Palsgrove is our current appointee on that board. He's not able to continue in that capacity, so we need someone to fill the remainder of his one-year term. Our meeting this year is on March 18th. It is all day long. We go into and tour 23 businesses and then drive around approximately 20 more that are receiving the real estate tax exemption. If anyone has a desire to serve on that commission or is available on March 18th, that would be helpful.
I can do it.
Second.
Since everyone on this board is looking this direction, yes.
So,
And
Mr.
my
Hare,
my calendar is open, so
we have
yes.
appointed Ms. Gooden for the 2025 Housing Council appointee from Planning and Zoning.
Okay, thank you.
that is all I have this evening for old new business.
Mr. Moore, any, on the library, any update on the library? Are they moving? Are they on pace?
I haven't heard anything of them being delayed. The last kind of tentative schedule I heard from them is that they want to have a soft kind of move and opening around Thanksgiving to Christmas time, and then have a grand opening that's publicized, I think, in March of next year.
I can update you on Ohio Health, who invited our board, our condo board, to a grand, well, not a grand, a tour of the building under construction. They are actually a little ahead of schedule. They hope to have the ER open early and the rest of the building by July. And they plan an open house that hopefully we're going to have an invite to.
Was the property between Right Pat and the Turbo Wash, I thought that had been approved for, was it a smoothie or some kind of a?
No, that out parcel's never had any submittals submitted to Planning and Zoning Commission.
Oh, okay. I thought that one was gone. Okay.
There's already a smoothie across the street.
There is one across the
Yeah.
street. I just, for some reason, I thought that parcel, I thought they just went down the roads.
Any other new business?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Mr. Wildenthaler. Roll call.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gooden?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Wildenthaler?
Yes.
And Mr. Deeds, yes.
Timeout, 8:47 PM.